I was standing in the backyard saying my vows to the man I love, when my mother-in-law came storming in, screaming, throwing things, until the cops dragged her away in handcuffs, and all of this happened because she stole our wedding money to bail out a felon we didn't even want at the wedding. I always knew that marrying into a family meant more than just loving one person, it meant navigating the people around them too. From the beginning, my fiancé's mom made it very clear that she didn't see me as good enough for her son. She had that fakes, wheat tone, always smiling while slipping in passive-aggressive digs, like commenting on how some women don't grow up knowing how to host properly. When I made her dinner or asking if I was sure I could handle wedding planning on my own, still, I smiled through it because I loved him and he loved me. We had been together for years, and when he proposed, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. He was my best friend, my safe space, my future, and I wanted our wedding to be a celebration of that love, shared with the people closest to us, even if that included some complicated relationships. We started saving early. Every extra dollar went into our wedding fund. We were meticulous, setting up spreadsheets, tracking costs, dreaming about flowers and colors and playlists. It wasn't about luxury, it was about creating something meaningful. His mom offered to contribute financially and insisted on helping with organizing things. I had my doubts, but when she offered to handle the vendor deposits, saying she knew people and could make a few calls, my fiancé encouraged me to trust her. She was his mom after all. At first, everything seemed fine. She showed us fake receipts, talked about tasting menus, and even sent us photos of potential venues. She acted involved, excited. I actually started to believe maybe she was finally warming up to me. But deep down, there was a part of me that stayed uneasy. The way she controlled conversations, the way she talked about her vision. For the wedding, it felt like it wasn't even about us anymore. Still, I bit my tongue. I wanted peace, I wanted this to work. I told myself that after the wedding we could set boundaries, that things would get better once we were officially married. I had no idea that behind all the smiles and planning, she was quietly pulling the rug out from under us, and everything we worked for was about to be stolen in every sense of the word. It started with a strange phone call from the venue. They politely informed me that they hadn't received the deposit, even though we were already supposed to be locked in for the date. I was confused, but tried not to panic. Maybe it was a mistake in their system. I told them I'd double-check with my future mother-in-law since she was handling the payments. When I called her, she acted totally unfazed, said she'd take care of it, and that it was probably just a miscommunication. She was calm, even dismissive, like I was bothering her by asking. A few days later, the florist called, same thing, no payment, no confirmation. I began to feel a creeping anxiety take over. I knew something was wrong. I brought it up to my fiancé. He looked confused at first and said his mom had shown him the receipts. But when he tried to pull them up in his messages, they were suddenly gone, deleted. When he asked her directly, she got defensive, said we were being ungrateful, that she was bending over backwards to help us. She spun it into an emotional guilt trip, so fast it made my head spin. How dare we question her after all she was doing? But the lies were starting to unravel. The catering service we'd chosen canceled on us for non-payment. The decorator ghosted us. It was like dominoes falling one by one. Everything we had planned started collapsing. Finally, after mounting pressure, she cracked. One evening, my fiancé came home looking pale and shaken. He told me she admitted to using the money, thousands of dollars we had saved, and she had promised to manage to bail out his sister's husband, a man who had been arrested for fraud. The irony wasn't lost on me. She didn't even apologize. She just said he didn't deserve to be in jail, and that family helps family. But somehow we weren't included in that definition. It wasn't just about the money. It was the betrayal, the entitlement, the way she made a decision that destroyed months of our effort without even consulting us. I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. We had no venue, no vendors, no savings. Just a sense of devastation, and a growing realization that this wedding and this family might never be what we thought. After that night, something in both of us shifted. We sat on the couch in complete silence, the weight of what had just happened hanging between us. My fiancé kept apologizing, even though it wasn't his fault. I could see how much it was tearing him up inside, not just losing the wedding we had planned, but realizing that his own mother had put someone else's mess above our future. We stayed up until almost 3 a.m. Going over what options we had left. The big wedding was gone. The vendors had moved on, the venue date had passed, and we didn't have the money to start over. But what we did have was each other. We made the decision right then, we would get married anyway. We didn't need a grand ballroom or a crowd of people to validate our love. We just needed a space that felt like us. So we called my aunt, who had a beautiful backyard with string lights and a big oak tree in the center. She offered to host us without hesitation. Friends stepped up to help. My cousin baked us a cake. A few coworkers helped set up folding chairs and borrowed decorations. It came together so fast, not fancy, not expensive, but somehow more meaningful than anything we had originally planned. And most importantly, we kept it a secret from his mother and sister. We didn't trust them. After what she had done, there was no way we could risk them showing up and ruining what little piece we were trying to create. We didn't post about it, didn't send out digital invites. Just a tight circle of people we loved and who actually supported us. On the day of the wedding, I remember looking around at our small group of guests and feeling overwhelmed not by what we lost, but by what we still had. It was peaceful, intimate, and beautiful in a way I didn't expect. For the first time in weeks, I actually smiled a real, honest smile. I felt like we had taken back control of our lives. But that peace was short-lived. Just a few hours after we said I do, someone posted a photo online, a harmless picture of us under the tree surrounded by fairy lights. It went viral in our family group chat, and that's when the phone calls started. That's when we knew. She knew. It started with the sound of screeching tires outside the gate. I was still in my dress, barefoot in the grass, talking with a friend when I heard the sudden crunch of gravel and angry shouting from the driveway. I turned and saw her, my mother-in-law, storming out of her car, red-faced, while died yelling my fiancé's name like she was summoning him for punishment. Everything in me froze. I felt like a child again, like I had done something wrong even though I hadn't. She barged through the gate before anyone could stop her, pushing past guests and demanding to know why we betrayed the family. My fiancé stepped in front of her immediately, blocking her path. He told her to calm down and to leave if she couldn't behave. That's when she completely lost it. She began accusing me of manipulating him, of stealing her son, of intentionally excluding them to humiliate her. Guests started backing away, some pulling out their phones. I could feel my heart racing, not just from fear but from anger. This was our wedding, a moment she had already stolen once, and now she was trying to destroy it again. When I tried to step in and tell her to leave, she turned to me and without warning shoved me hard. I stumbled backward, caught off guard. That's when my fiancé snapped. He got between us again, yelling at her to never touch me again and telling her she had no right to be here. But she wasn't listening. She was crying now, ranting about how she'd sacrificed so much, and we threw it in her face. None of it made sense. It was like she wasn't even speaking to us, just screaming into the chaos she had created. Then she did something I'll never forget. She picked up a chair and hurled it toward the table where our cake had been moments before. It crashed to the ground, splintering the wood. The guests gasped. Someone grabbed me by the arm and pulled me back. Another guest was already on the phone with the police. My fiancé's voice cracked as he yelled at her to leave, that she was embarrassing herself, that she was never going to control him again. But she just stood there, panting, shaking, until the sound of sirens cut through the night. That's when she started to back away, but it was already too late. The flashing red and blue lights washed over the backyard like a scene from a movie, except it was real, and it was our wedding night. Two officers approached calmly but quickly, hands on their belts, already taking in the scene. Broken chair, guests whispering, a sobbing, furious woman yelling about betrayal. My mother-in-law didn't even try to compose herself. She immediately launched into a full-blown rant, pointing at me and shouting that I had ruined everything, that I was a liar, a manipulator, that I had stolen her son. The officers tried to calm her down, but she kept escalating, flailing her arms, getting in their faces. I stood off to the side with my fiancé's arm wrapped around me, my body still shaking. I could barely process what was happening. All I kept thinking was, how did it come to this? We had planned a quiet ceremony to escape all this chaos, and yet here it was louder, uglier, and more public than ever. The moment they put her in handcuffs, there was a strange silence. It wasn't relief. Not yet, just disbelief, my mother-in-law screamed as they led her toward the car, telling my fiancé he was dead to her, that he was choosing a stranger over his own blood. He didn't say a word. His jaw was clenched, his eyes locked forward, not even looking at her. I think something inside him broke that night, too. A thread that had held him loyal, despite everything, had finally snapped. As she was taken away, someone clapped. A single, sarcastic clap from the back, one of my cousins, trying to break the tension. A few people laughed nervously, but most just stood there in shock. The wedding was over, not in the way we'd planned, with dancing and toasts and a slow goodbye, but with sirens, shouting, and the crash of everything we tried so hard to protect. In the days that followed, the chaos finally settled, but the silence that replaced it was just as heavy. My mother-in-law was officially charged with assault and disorderly conduct. She wasn't held for long, but the damage was done. The footage from someone's phone made it onto social media, and though we never intended for our wedding to go viral, that's exactly what happened. Comments poured in, some sympathetic, others judgmental, but none of them really captured what it felt like to live through it. To have the most important day of your life tainted by betrayal and rage, and to carry that weight long after the decorations were packed away. My husband and I still say that word with both pride and disbelief was quiet for a while. I knew he was grieving in his own way. Not just the loss of the wedding we imagined, but the realization that the woman who raised him was never going to be who he needed her to be. He didn't reach out to her, and she didn't reach out to us. The silence between them stretched like a canyon neither of them wanted to cross. I asked him once if he missed her. He said, "I missed the idea of her, not the reality." That hurt more than I expected it to. We've tried to rebuild since then, our peace, our boundaries, our sense of safety. We don't talk to his sister either. She's chosen to believe her version of events, the one where I orchestrated all of this to turn him against his family. I used to care what she thought. I don't anymore. What I do care about is that we're happy now. Our marriage started with fire and fallout, but we've grown stronger in the aftermath. We laugh more. We talk more. We have each other's backs in a way I don't think we would have understood if we hadn't been tested like this. Sometimes I still look at our wedding photos, not the ones with the chaos, but the ones before. Just the two of us under the tree, the lights glowing above us, our hands clasped tightly. And I remind myself that love doesn't always show up the way you expect. Sometimes it shows up in the ruins when you've lost everything else, and someone still chooses you. Every single day,